I'm Will from General Motors. I work in our noise and vibration department as a senior engineer. Okay, so the title of this presentation is Enhancing Spatial Presence to Enable NNV Decisions. We'll talk about that a little more as we go through the PowerPoint, but really what I'm trying to talk about is enabling immersion into the noise and vibration. I have a cool little story I put together for you. And I have to give credit to my partner in crime, Glenn Patel. He's not here, but he's probably virtual. He does a lot of our sound enhancement work, so he's sitting there and I'm sitting driving the sim. Let's go over what we're going to talk about. What's the motivation for increased immersion? I have a little story and our little roadmap. And then I'll actually talk about examples. So we have our a little project that we did. We're trying to do some visual work, and then kind of what's next on our roadmap, looking at object-based audio. I'm not going to read that quote because one, it's hard to read, and two, I wish I could write like that. The person that I pulled this from is quite good at writing, but my takeaway from reading that was when you're giving these demonstrations in the NNV simulator and the compact, everyone desires to be immersed into the sound. Whether they tell you or not, right? Because a lot of times they say, oh, hey, it's just an engineering demo, things don't have to be totally right with the visuals, things don't have to be totally right with the acoustics. If you really want to start replacing prototype vehicles, you really need to start pushing into immersing people into the noise and vibration so they have this emotional connection with it. So this presentation is more about talking about kind of the soft side of NNV. So here's my story. I had a perfect simulation. I was quite proud of myself. It was a request that came from our performance car team. We had this mechanical sound enhancer. For those that don't know what a mechanical sound enhancer is, it's a little device that plugs in the induction. It resonates and apports sound in the cabin. Some people love them, some people hate them, but that's not the point of the story. The point was we wanted to evaluate it in the simulator for a mid-cycle MCM. So. It's a tough job I have. I had to go out in a vehicle, test it. So would you believe at that performance car, I tested all the loads, all the gears. It was a really detailed model. I took my time with it, and I was quite proud of it. Fully quantified the physics of the sound enhancer. They're pretty simple devices. They have a little membrane that vibrates, and you can tune that membrane up and down. You can put foam in them and all sorts of things. So I had the physics knocked perfect. I had a really good full driving model. I was rolling into this demonstration with my chief engineer. I had a pretty big ego going on. And then he drove it around for 5 minutes, and he said, I don't feel like I'm in the car, Will. I said, oh, this is not going the way I need it. And then, it's a fair bit of recovery there, but, I wish I could say, oh, he told me exactly what he needed to be immersed. But it took some time, and it was a new challenge to me, because usually when you're having these demonstrations with chief engineers, it's a sound concern, it's a vibration concern, it's cost. I've never had a chief engineer say, I'm not immersed in your demonstration. That was that took me back a bit. That's a new problem, and we'll talk about what I did on the next slide about how to try to solve that problem. There's some definitions here. It's really helpful if you're going to search for things in literary publishments and things like that. But for the most part, we're focusing on the sensory presence. So basically, what am I trying to do when I have a demonstration with my chief or any decision maker or even just engineering? What can I do to really bring their senses away from the state of just existing, standing in this room or sitting, listening to a sound to I am listening to my car, right? Things like that. So we'll bring this all in here. Luckily, when you were doing that literary research, there was an author that laid out levels 0, 1, 2, and 3 of levels of immersion. And then we brainstormed with our team over at GM. Where are we at right now? Where do we need to be to have basically prototype replacements? And then, where can we go if we wanted to overachieve? So level 0, I think if you've been in engineering long enough, we've had that happen before where basically the person's looking at their phone, just kind of doing their own little thing. They're not really paying attention to what you're trying to demonstrate for noise and vibration. Level 1, I would say the chief was there. He was engaged. He was concentrating. He was looking at the information. I was feeding accurate SPL and content. The feeling at the time, there was no vibration at the time, and if you spend enough time with these performance car evaluators, the vibration's a huge component for their assessment of vehicles. It's this visceral feel, right? So not only are they getting the sound, they're also getting the vibration feedback as well. So that's something we've recently improved on, and we've now have accurate and key touch points where we have vibration. We're feeding that in as we're doing NNV evals. And then at the time, the site, we just had the very generic infinite roadway. It wasn't a road he was familiar with. He was like, where am I? What road is this? I said, well, it's a road. And then we actually all talked about the project we have going on where we were able to make roads that are familiar, that are useful, that people have seen and they know. And then what are we doing in the future to kind of push us into roads with proper art? And then for fun, taste, smell, you could, if they're doing burnouts, maybe you could throw a scent in there. That's over at level 4, that total immersion. It's probably not necessary. And the key here on these levels is, and it's going to vary for who's doing the evaluation, because some people need less things, some people need more, but I always want to give the best experience to whoever's coming into my demonstration. So my main goal is that word there, that emotional investment. Once I have somebody in my compact and they're emotionally invested and they're not just listening to a sound or, oh, hey, this is a cool demo, that they're actually, this is my car and I need to make a decision based on this information, that's what I'm targeting. And, another thing I want to point out is you can have perfect SPL, but if your visuals aren't that great, or, you can have great vibration, but if the sound is generic, I've done some studies where I'll put in a generic sound for going down a road with bumps and chatter and things, and it all has to be right to really push into that emotional investment. So now we're going to get into a quick little overview about some of the things that we've been up to. I'm not saying this is the way of doing a map. I'm not saying it's the only way or the best way. It's a project that we put together. We have a rotational program with new engineers. So I had a track engineer for a couple months, and they were really excited about simulators. So I said, well, I got the project for you. We had access to Roadrunner. It's a MATLAB product. I said, I want you to use Roadrunner, and I want you to make me a map of our noise roads. And I was impressed how it worked out. You're able to get the outline of the roads. You're able to get some topo. We went out on the road system, took some pictures. It wasn't in the project at the time, but you can put road scans in if you're trying to run a real time, which is super important as we start pushing into zero prototypes, is bringing more real time in. Pull that all into Roadrunner, put in some road art, make it look nice. There's training videos, not an advertisement for VI, but they had some nice training videos. And then port it into WorldSim Studio where you can do the final touches, like bring the auto steering and some lighting and some rain like that. And then finally, out of WorldSim Studio, go into the NNV simulator. It was a pretty great project. I was impressed with their work. The goals was just to use an integrated solution, so we weren't trying to replace WorldSim or anything like that. I had some in-house talent, software, and some processes that our ADAS team that were already, that they figured out, so we wanted to see if it worked for us. The software tool chain works. We were able to collect data, build maps, and run them. The source data collection is free. Times are always tough, so it was nice to have a free option. And we weren't going for within millimeters. The maps were relatively trace and go, so that worked out. We learned a few things along the way. The import-export process, you are jumping between 3 softwares. So that's just kind of, you have to learn or at least install 3 softwares, which for a new track engineer, they're out of college, they're very green, they're very motivated though, and she was able to figure it out, so that was pretty cool. And then you do have to do some final touches in WorldSim, and I would say the one thing that I wish we did a little better on is this is just a screenshot of WorldSim. When you have an engineer make a map, we miss kind of some of those wow things that make a map pop. The textures, the trees, the grass. The map we made was nice, but you could tell the engineering team made the map. And then the Outlook, there's a small licensing fee. However, it's a cool option for quick maps. When we previously we talked about the previous presentation talked about global things. So our team in China doesn't have access to our noise roads, and we don't have access to theirs. So it's kind of cool to send a map over to PayTac or our Chinese counterparts, have them drive on our map, and the vice versa. However, you do need a balance in-house and external. Generally, my job is to build models and run the simulator, not do graphical art. So what's the other project that we're working on? It's something that it's currently in process. I'm quite excited about it. It's object-based audio. I'll give you a quick rundown of what is object-based audio. It kind of started in the home theater space. So channelized audio, we've all heard of 5.1, 7.1, yada, yada. As Dolby was coming out with more and more channel-based audio formats, there was a certain point in the cinematic people said, hey, you need to stop making these high channel count audio formats. We need something easier. Because every time you have to author a movie, you had to author all these different formats. So I believe there's actually a few different people out there. There's Atmos, Fraunhofer, and DTS. They've all kind of coalesced on something called object-based audio. And that's a really cool technology. We're starting to see it in our cars as well, where that's enabled. Where now, instead of trying to place a sound in a channel like you normally do with binaural, where you have a left and right channel, you can now place sounds in front, behind, and around, because the metadata along with the audio track can place sounds in areas. So if you can think of now, instead of a person sitting in their compact with headphones, they're now sitting in their compact, I can place PFAF or AVAS noise to the left of them because that's where the speaker is. I can put a little more road noise behind them, and it really makes the experience a lot more immersive for them. And that was actually something that the chief engineer called out on my previous story, where the mechanical sound enhancers are very directional. You can usually spot them pretty quickly depending where they're put. And when I did my demonstration, I wasn't able to do that. So object-based audio will really allow a lot of the correct placement of sound elements. And it's a huge benefit for sound enhancement, where now we'd be able to get some rough staging of the sound on our simulator. And then once we have the rough staging, we can port that over to our car, do a little tweaks, and then send it on its way. So this is just kind of the wrap-up. I really just want people to walk away with the thought of, please think about how do we enhance the immersion when we're doing these demonstrations. I can't just take a prototype away from my chief engineer and then just have them sit with a headset and say, buy off on this car, virtually sign off on this sound. So that's always something we're looking on, pushing that boundary. There's no one solution. It's just everybody wants, hey, can I just do the maps? Can I just do this? It's likely a combination of things to do. Roadrunner and WorldSim, it was an effective solution. It worked well, and I'm pretty happy with the map. And then integrating object-based audio, that's kind of the next thing on the forefront of trying to add some directionality to the sound immersion. All right, I ran through it. Thanks.